Hi. So here we are in Chapter 3. Chapter 3, the theme of the chapter, how does gender affect the monster? And of course we have a bunch of different questions that are eligible for you to write about. The first piece in the chapter, The Evolving Legend of La Llorona by Amy Fuller, has question number 7 amongst one of the possibilities. Question 7 said, how did gender and power work to construct the figure of La Llorona? Examine the roles that women and men are expected to fulfill in terms of love, marriage, and children. What does the tale tell us about those roles? Do later versions of the tale, as described by Fuller, change those dynamics? How? So that's the question that my good student Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, decided to use for his essay. Now, so we have proper MLA format up here, right? Just exactly like that. We have the title, How Gender Shapes the Character of La Llorona, right there. Remember, your title should be a content-related title, not just simply saying something like Fuller number 7. Now, Fuller number 7 is what I wanted to see when you turned in your thesis outline, right? When you turned those in to me. But now, for the essay, it should be a content-related title. Remember, we talked about doing 3 things in the introductory paragraph of our essay. Hook the reader, introduce the subject, provide the thesis argument. Now, the hook is something to grab our interest. In here we have, imagine a beautiful woman killing her illegitimate children in a fit of rage upon learning about her unfaithful lover. Okay, so opening sentence is, I think, a bit of an attention grabber. Certainly looks like something pretty extreme happening here. He has left her for another woman, the ultimate betrayal. Because of her horrible act, she is doomed to an eternity of crying and weeping while searching for her children. This is the story of La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman. Okay, so that's, what is that? 4 sentences. That's a pretty good size hook right there. Now, the student starts to work in a quote. Now, one of the things I want you to understand, one of the things I've tried to impress upon everybody, is that quotes shouldn't just be dropped in. They need to be set up in some way, even if it's as simple as what we see here. Cordelia Candelaria states, quote, one of the most vigorous legends among Mexican and Mexican Americans, people whose cultures place high premium on mi madre, la familia, y el hogar, mother, family, and home, is the story of La Llorona, the weeping woman who kills, or in some versions abandons, her children forever after wanders the world in punishing anguish for her sins. End quote, parentheses, 111, close parentheses, period. So that's a pretty nice quote at that position. So we're now focused pretty strongly on where we're going with this. There are countless versions of La Llorona. Sounds like an exaggeration to me, but there you go. And the folklore is not only used to keep children from misbehaving, but is also used as a symbol of female gender role in Mexican culture. See, now that really pulls us towards the question in the textbook, right? About gender and power. According to Nadia Avendano, the character of La Llorona, quote, exerted a profound impact on the way women of Mexican descent have understood their sexuality and imagined their roles within society and family, end quote. 224 to 225, period. Now, this is a nice integration of the quote. And what I mean by integration is that the sentence that you are writing, or the student is writing here, just flows naturally into the actual quote itself. In other words, if I didn't have those quotation marks there, it would be almost indecipherable. You would not see a difference between the student's words and the quoted material. All right, that's pretty nice. That's pretty solid. Although there are many variations of the tale, the traditional gender role of a woman in Mexican culture is evident throughout each story, which shapes the figure of La Llorona. Okay, so that's pretty solid thesis, right? Responding to the question in the textbook. Now, the second thing that we talk about doing in the essay is what I like to call the concession. The concession is the argument opposed to your position. If you say yes, what do the no people say? Okay. So in other words, what is the argument that says that gender is not a key factor in La Llorona? That would be the concession. Some might say, here we go, right? You have this language here at the beginning of the paragraph. Some might say, gender does not play a big role in the forming of the character of La Llorona, semicolon. That the main aspect of her character and reasoning for her actions could be emotional or psychological. While this is somewhat true, one must understand the traditional roles and differences between men and women within Mexican society and how they factor into the situation La Llorona has found herself. And what I really like about this essay is the student doesn't just say that, they then support that with another quote. According to Jerry Galante, quote, machismo and patriarchal authority characterize the male role. The roles of a traditional woman are housewife and mother. Women are expected to defer to the authority of their husbands, end quote, 1 period. Okay, so that quote helps to support what the student has already introduced. With this clear understanding of the role of men and women, one can take those traits into consideration. La Llorona's lover is doing as he pleases, while she is expected to continue with her womanly duties as a housewife and a mother. Okay. Now, after the concession, we turn back to our own perspective, our own argument, our own thesis. One of the keys to writing a strong and coherent essay is to have good, solid topic sentences. So I'm not going to walk through every single word in this essay for us, right? You don't need me to do that. But I do want to point to the topic sentences. There are many gender roles and norms, specifically in Mexican culture, that play a big role in shaping the character of La Llorona. Good. That connects me back to the thesis. But what kind of roles? The author goes on. Traditionally, women are referred to as mayonismo and viewed as, quote, submissive, independent mother figure rather than a wife, end quote. Amata et al. 4. By the way, just remember from MLA, the et al. There, after Amata, means that there are at least 3 authors of the original material. You list the first author's last name, and then ETAL period, that's an abbreviation for Latin, et alis, meaning and others. So you're saying Amata and others wrote this. It's necessary to do that because everybody gets credit, right? If their name is on the byline, they get credit, or blame, depending on how you look at it. Okay, rather than just simply only recognizing the first person listed. That's hardly fair. Here we have more quotes from Laura Paz, right? More analysis from Amata et al. Another quote. Pretty significantly good material here. Second paragraph, second paragraph of the main body. It's actually the 4th paragraph of the whole essay. La Llorona's act of killing her children symbolizes many things. If I were to quibble with this author, I'd probably say let's be a little more specific than saying many things. Nevertheless, it's still showing what we're going to do, the symbolism of the killing, right? Another work, Kimberly Vinall, poses an interesting question of whether La Llorona is a symbol of revenge or of liberation. One can reflect on this in many different ways. La Llorona killing her children is an obvious act of revenge towards her unfaithful lover, but is also an act of liberation from the preconceived idea of a woman's role thrust upon her, specifically how she is viewed by her husband. In many of the tales, it is assumed that La Llorona will never find out about the other woman, or that she might even be okay with sharing her husband. Right. This is proven to be a false assumption of La Llorona throughout the tales. The traits of being submissive, dependent on her husband, and accepting of any faults maps out the ideal world according to traditional Mexican standards. Period. Then, countless variations of La Llorona can be found. Okay, so we have that going on. And we see this in Fuller's essay, right? Fuller talks about this, but the student, Tony Stark, in this case, has gone beyond just recounting what Fuller said and did his own research. Right? So Alcina Lubitsch Domek depicts her as a woman left by her husband, yada, yada, yada. We see some other pieces, other, shall we say, approaches to the character of La Llorona, right? Then we have a conclusion. Restate the thesis, look at the big picture, right, which kind of says, okay, why is this important? Why does this matter? And then provide a clincher at the very end. So we tie everything off and we're not expecting anything more, right? So here's a clincher here. No matter which tale is familiar, the role of the female gender and who is eternally punished stays constant, which aids to construct the character of La Llorona. The Works Cited page, by the way, is very nicely done, and I would encourage you to take a good, careful look at it, because for those of you who are still having trouble with MLA format, if I'm marking you down for bad MLA, right, one of the things you can do is look at an essay that has good MLA format so you can get a better sense of what you're seeing. Double-spaced, alphabetical order, hanging indentations, author, title, publisher, year, page. This one has a URL. It's also got an access date. That is the day that you went on and found it. This one is from our database called EBSCOhost at Mesa College. With EBSCOhost, I do not require a URL or a database because there's no real reason for it. Okay. DOIs are nice to have sometimes. That's what a DOI is right there. You see that. So forth and so on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sources used in this essay. That's more than was required, but remember, you can always do more. I don't penalize you for doing more than the minimum. Minimums are not maximums, right? But this is what we're seeing. And anyway, as we go through Tony Stark's essay, and those of you who don't believe me, yes, he was here. Go through it carefully, take a look at how Stark has constructed the essay, look at topic sentences, but also look at the paragraphs and the support. There's a lot of good support throughout the essay that is brought in, the quotes and paraphrases, and then the analysis that Tony, the student, actually does with that material, so that it formulates a strong and coherent argument, in this case, about La Llorona.